just say for a second that Guantanamo Bay wasn't in Cuba. Let's say it was in the Isle of Skye. Right? Just for the sake of argument. And it wasn't being run by the Americans, it was being run by the MOD or the Foreign Office. Then the logical position of the other three people on this panel, to a greater or lesser extent, would be that's a reserved issue. It's not the province of the Scottish Parliament. These issues must be the province of the Scottish Parliament. They are the individual and complete responsibility of every adult Scot and every MSP, and unacceptable, inhumane practices should not be allowed to happen in our country, whether they are reserved or not. It's all right.
Mohammed Asif, who is a well-known campaigner for asylum rights, a refugee himself from Afghanistan.
It's a simple question. Will your political party support amnesty for families who are here for 4 or 6 or 7 or 12 years?
I mean, can I just say, I think there are issues about the Home Office and how the Home Office operates.
Yes or no?
Yes, no, you let Alex have and talk a lot. Maybe
yes or no? Simple, yes or no? Would you support amnesty?
Be fair, no,
I would be fair, but answer the question.
And I do accept that the Home Office has got big issues that it has to tackle. Absolutely accept that, and I think that lies the solution. I think just a bold amnesty at this point, I wouldn't know the implications of that. In all honesty, you have to be it's very easy for us to sit here and say, yes, we'll have an amnesty, yes, we're trying. I don't know what the Alex immigration policy would be. I don't know what he would do to connect traffickers who actually broke the rules. You have to have rules, and I wouldn't agree to that unless I knew the implications, because if I thought people were going to get around it and really break the rules, then I wouldn't agree with it.
So simple answer no.
Yes, probably.
Phil, yes or no?
It's not a simple answer, yes or no. Sorry, what would you
agree with amnesty?
What I would wish to see happen is I wish to see these applications dealt with as quickly as possible and as sympathetically as possible. But I have not moved out with an amnesty until I know exactly what to follow.
Robert?
Well, it perhaps goes without saying that this is not something which can be dealt with in the context of these Scottish elections or by the Scottish Parliament following the election, because immigration and asylum is a reserved issue. Now, having said that, my personal view is we have had an amnesty previously for certain categories of asylum seekers. It seems to me there's no real reason why there can't be an amnesty in the future. And I think the area of concern there is particularly those families who have been here in Scotland a long time, who've got, if you like, settlement rights in inverted commas in this country, and who, I think, however you look at it, are being dragged away from the community to which they belong by the way in which the asylum system is working at the moment. So, yes, I do feel sympathetic towards the idea of an amnesty, but it is a matter for the UK government and the UK Parliament to take forward.
Alex, I'm being accused of not being fair, so yes or no, would you support an amnesty?
Yes, and I'm glad that Robert made the point. This principle has already been conceded in previous cases. There have been amnesties, and I think there is a strong case for what are termed legacy cases for amnesty. I think it's a strong case. It has been conceded before. I'm not sure if the other members of the panel knew that, and therefore I don't see what the objection on principle could be. And at last, in this debate, I found something to agree with Robert a bit.
Well, actually, no, it's a supplementary, actually. You remember that Jack McConnell met with the Glasgow girls not so long ago and made them a promise. What happened to the promise he made about negotiating an amnesty for people in that situation in Glasgow girls? What happened to it? Where's the protocol?
I don't recollect that was the promise. In fairness to Jack McConnell made, he might answer it,
I know, but in all honesty, I don't remember that being part of the details. I do think he did say he would do this about the John Raids, and I'm happy to check that out and find that out properly. I was not directly involved in that, but it was much more about representing John Raids and about the issue of children who were in Glasgow schools and in Scottish schools and what happened to them, and people who were here for some time having their education disrupted, and that is what we've been pursuing, and that's what we've got results on.
Margaret, Jack McConnell, on memory, March of 2007 said legacy cases would be treated sensitively. Do you think they are being treated sensitively as we speak?
Well, that's what I was attempting to say earlier on before you wouldn't let me get trying to say this. Right, thank you, I appreciate that. I do think what the Home Office does need to look at how it conducts its business. I actually think John Reid has said this publicly, that the Home Office needs to look at how it does its business. It needs to be restructured, it needs to be reorganised. to ensure that we are conducting our business much more efficiently. I think those are, people I know that have experienced the immigration system say to me, it needs to be efficient and it needs to be fair, and I think we need to have a system that does that. Now, part of legacy cases and amnesty allows you to have a better system. I wouldn't rule it out. But what I'm not going to do is play a cheap game with you here and say yes because it makes my life a bit easier. If I think there's implications of it, I just won't do it. It's too serious an issue, and I'm trying to be honest.
Okay, next question is, there was the biggest rebellion within the Parliament since the Iraq War when the vote took place, the decision to replace Trident, Britain's nuclear weapons system. The question I would want to ask the panel is it moral to hold weapons that could kill millions of people at the stroke of a button? Bill?
I'll tell you this, it's my birthday tomorrow. And I'm 60 years of age. I know you'll not believe that, but that is the case. And I'm part of a very lucky generation. Because I've never had to go to war. My father did, and my grandfather did. And nobody shot at me. And there's one reason for that, and that is because nuclear weapons, whether we like them or not, and I don't think any sensible person likes them, have prevented a war over the last 60 years. I do think that we should have nuclear deterrent. I do not have the technical knowledge to say whether or not Trident is the answer, but I'm certainly in favour of a nuclear deterrent. I'm not going to try and be dishonest in this anyway, but it's very upfront, because I think that lessons of history are quite clear that with the nuclear weapons issue, it has in fact prevented major conflagrations over the years.
I think it's worth saying that I think we all have moral views about these matters, but the reality is, whatever our morality is on these matters, nuclear weapons exist both in our hands and in the hands of other and sometimes quite unpleasant governments across the world. That's the reality of the position. The way I view it, I must confess, is to consider what part Britain can play against that background in moving things forward. That's why my party, the Liberal Democrats, took the view that replacing Trident was the wrong direction of travel at the present time, sent the wrong signals, cost obviously a lot of money as well, but also didn't contribute at all towards moves towards multilateral disarmament. At the end of the day, it makes little difference, to be quite frank, whether Britain by itself does or doesn't have a nuclear so-called deterrent. What it does make a difference is whether the international community and the states which either have or could acquire nuclear weapons can be moved forward, as they have at some points in the past when the circumstances have been propitious, towards either giving up nuclear weapons or very much reducing the arsenal. And I think it seems to me that we've perhaps got a window of opportunity at this present time where this is possible and where Britain's influence could be thrown into the scales to make a bit of a difference in that connection. That is the direction of travel, I think. I think moralistic gestures one way or the other of the issue is not the actual proper way to deal with the subject.
Alex?
Well, I've got news for Bill. There have been plenty of wars since his first birthday, and one of them's going on just now, and it's illegal, it's unjust, and it's cost tens, perhaps hundreds of thousands of lives in Iraq, and it's cost the lives of many British and American soldiers, and it's made the world an intensely more dangerous place. So no, Bill, Trident has not eliminated war. War is going on by proxy in a range of places in the world, and it is disastrous in its impact. In terms of Trident specifically, there is a number of aspects to consider. The people we entrust, like Hans Blix, who was entrusted to find weapons of mass destruction in Iraq, he'd have no trouble whatsoever in finding them in Scotland, incidentally, in the River Clyde. Aamer Anwar, a man entrusted by the United Nations to contain Iranian ambitions in nuclear weapons. They have both publicly stated, one in this city, incidentally, that the proliferation consequences, the lessons that a renewal of Trident and 50 more years of weapons of mass destruction in Scotland have for proliferation across the planet are dangerous. And lastly, of course, we're in the SQC, and the SQC is part of a broad coalition going through faith groups and churches across Scotland, and including a majority of MPs representing Scotland in the Trident vote, who voted against having Scotland used as a dumping ground for weapons of mass destruction over the next 50 years. Under these circumstances, I think it's quite incredible that anyone should support that proposition, given the democratic mandate as well as the moral opposition to a renewal of Trident.